All right, so Russell Poole was basically the first main investigator, first homicide investigator assigned to the Notorious B.I.G. murder. But there's a lot of things that I feel like people don't know, important things that will tell you what started the root of this whole theory, where it came from, who it originated with, and kind of how it, went down the path it went down. So to start it off, obviously a lot of people who are listening kind of already know the basics, but, the theory kind of originated around a jailhouse informant named Psycho Mike Robinson, who was in jail at the time of Biggie's murder, but, he claimed that he had information on who had committed the murder. So, detectives went and they met with him, sat down, did an interview with him. And what he told police is that there was a guy named Abraham, Amir, or Amir, and he was a Crip bodyguard who drove around Compton in a stretch white limo, and that he killed Biggie with a machine gun. And which doesn't really match up with Amir Muhammad, who they point the finger at. He went on, so in addition to this, he claimed that he personally knew Amir. He said he knew him well, and that he knew him for 10 to 12 years at this point. But if that was true, all this information he got completely wrong. So he said that he was a Crip bodyguard that drove around Compton in a stretch white limo. He used a machine gun to kill Biggie. He also claimed that Amir was, before he joined the Nation of Islam or the Fruits of Islam, he was named Kiki or Kenny, which Amir Muhammad was named Harry Billups. So, if you know someone well for 10 or 12 years, you would think you would at least know what their real name was, but maybe not. But anyways, he also claimed that Amir Muhammad was between 6'1" and 6'2", that he weighed between 220, 230 pounds. Amir Muhammad, aka Harry Billups, he was 5'11", and he weighed around 180 pounds. So he's, 3 inches off on the height. He's 40, 50 pounds off on the weight. Doesn't know the first name of this guy that he claims he knows really well. He also claimed, let's see here, that, detectives asked him what kind of gun was used to kill Biggie. He, again, said it was a machine gun. When the detectives asked him if he knew what caliber was used, he said, "I heard a machine gun. It could have been an Uzi or a Tech 9. I don't know." Then the detectives asked him, "Do you know how the shooters did it? How did they get away?" And he responded with, "He went around the corner and got in a limo or a truck or something and drove off." So this guy that they're getting the name Amir from to base their whole theory on, he doesn't even know that Biggie was killed in a drive-by shooting. He thinks that the killer shot Biggie on foot and then ran and hopped in a getaway vehicle around the corner and drove off. So, in addition, during this interview, he told police that he didn't know if the shooter acted alone and that he didn't even know where exactly Biggie was killed. He just knew that it was at a party somewhere. And, he also admitted that it was hearsay. During the initial interview, he said that it was all hearsay stuff he had heard around the jail. So basically, they have this guy, Psycho Mike, who gives them a ton of information. None of it matches with Harry Billups, aka Amir Muhammad. At the time, Harry Billups was a real estate broker that was living near San Diego, California. So this doesn't match a Crip bodyguard that is driving around Compton. And I don't know if this was an error on whoever made these notes, but these were notes that appeared to have been written by the detectives during their meetings. They wrote frequents 83rd Street in Compton. From talking to Reggie, there is no 83rd Street in Compton. The streets start up in 150th or something like that. So basically, just all this information is completely wrong. He gets the guy's name wrong. He gets his height wrong, gets his weight wrong. He gets the description of the vehicle wrong that was used, a limo or a truck. It was actually an Impala. He gets how the shooter did it. He thinks it happened on foot. He gets that wrong. He says it was a machine gun. That doesn't match up with any of the eyewitness accounts. Basically he got every single thing wrong and admitted that it was just hearsay. But detectives cherry-picked the name Amir and ran with it. And the reason they did it is because, as Amir, David Mack, the cop that was in trouble for robbing the bank, was in jail at the time, and he had a guy named Amir who came and visited him visited him in jail during this time. So when Poole or whatever the detectives were that found this clue, if you want to call it that, saw the name Amir on his visitor log, and they're thinking David Mack is in trouble right now for robbing a bank. He's a crooked cop. We think he has death row ties because he had some kind of Tupac shrine in his house, and that he owned a black Impala, and that he had a photo of himself in a red suit. And I think Kevin Hackey maybe or someone claimed that they had seen him around somewhere. Didn't give any specifics. Didn't know anything for sure, but claimed, I think I've seen him around. And so just because this one, a quote-unquote crooked cop possibly had death row ties and had a visitor by the name of Amir come see him, they thought to themselves, this must be the guy. Even though all the information that had been given to them by this informant was wrong, they still ran with it just because he had visited David Mack in jail. So, from someone who's just looking at it, or someone who doesn't really know all the details behind it, like the facts behind it, it looks suspicious because they're thinking, why would someone lie about their social if they had nothing to hide? But what people don't realize is that when Amir Muhammad went to visit David Mack in prison, he did write down a fake social security number, but he wrote down the correct name, birth date, and he wrote down the address that matched his driver's license. So, just like a lot of people, for example, you have a telemarketer or whatever the reason might be, people are pretty protective over their social security number. You don't just give it out. People can steal your identity or, do whatever with it. And people usually protect it. They don't want to give it out unless they have to. And so, if you're in a jail setting, whether the inmates, the guards, or other people coming to visit that are going to be signing that form, they could potentially see your social and write it down. And he was just basically trying to protect himself. I don't think technically, personally, I don't think it's suspicious at all, because if someone was trying to hide their identity, they wouldn't put down their correct birth date and home address. Why, if you had just killed someone and you were scared the police were going to find you, why would you put down where you live on the form, the correct place that you put down? And, in addition to that, people don't realize that the name Amir Muhammad started with this form. The name Amir started with Psycho Mike, but Psycho Mike never said, this guy's name is Amir Muhammad. He just said Amir. Poole and the detectives, they didn't get the name Muhammad until they looked at this jail visitor log of David Mack's and said, oh, we've got an Amir Muhammad here that came to visit. This guy must be the guy that we're looking for. So that's where they got the name Muhammad from. For all we know, that's not even who Psycho Mike was talking about. But anyways, back to the main question. Is it suspicious? Only if you don't know the facts behind it and you don't realize that he did put down the correct name, birth date, and home address. You put down all that correct information. It doesn't matter if you lie about your social. People are still going to be able to find you if they want to. That's not how someone who is trying to hide their true identity goes about doing things. So, I don't think it's suspicious, no.
Right. Psycho Mike was a reliable, confidential informant for 15 years. What makes you think he was not reliable in the Biggie case?
So the reason that's, something some people say, they'll say, he was an informant for the last 15 years and he was considered a reliable informant. He testified at trials, this, that, and the other. That's great. All that is fine. But when it comes down to it, we know 100% for a fact that he was not telling the truth in this instance. We know it's not true because we know Biggie wasn't killed with a machine gun. We know that the shooter killed Biggie from a car, that he didn't do it on foot. We know that the guy he claims, Amir Muhammad, that they are saying, the name Amir that he gave, the police are saying is Amir Muhammad. We know that he's not a Crip bodyguard, that he doesn't drive around Compton in a stretched white limousine, that he's not 6'2" and weighs 230 pounds. We know all of that is wrong. So for people to say, well, he's a reliable informant, how come suddenly we're not supposed to believe him, just because Greg Kading says so? It's not because Greg Kading says so. It's because we have brains and we can see what the facts are. Biggie was killed in a drive-by shooting by someone in an Impala. Nobody saw the shooter fire the weapon. nobody got to look at the shooter's face while he fired the weapon. So bottom line is we know that he's wrong because nothing he said matches the facts of the case. None of it. He admitted it was hearsay. So, that would be like, using that logic, well, he was a reliable informant for the last 15 years. What, suddenly now you guys think he's lying? Well, he got everything wrong that he said. But that would be like saying, someone's a great driver for 15 years. They've never had a speeding ticket. They've never ran a red light. They're a perfect driver. And then suddenly one day they get pulled over driving home from a party and they're drunk. And they say to police, well, look at my record. I've been a very responsible driver for the last 15 years. How could you accuse me of being drunk right now? And they say, well, we just tested your breath with a breathalyzer and we know you're drunk. It's right here on the fucking machine. Like, all those 15 years of being reliable mean nothing to this one case. Just like 15 years of clean driving mean nothing when you get pulled over drunk. Like, that's great that you had 15 years of reliability and responsibility, but in this one instance, we know that you're wrong. So, people need to quit with that he was reliable shit, because facts prove that he was wrong about everything he said on this case. So there's a guy out there, he's a LA Sheriff's Department gang specialist. His name's Richard Valdemar or something like that. But anyway, he wrote an article on a website. And in this article, he was basically trying to insinuate, because, for all those that don't know this, Psycho Mike, in addition to all the stuff he said where he gave all the wrong information and he said it was hearsay, in addition to that, he recanted later and told police that it was all made up. So he completely recanted and said it was not true, and said that, that he was just making the whole thing up, basically. He was just repeating rumors he had heard. So he literally admitted that it was all a lie. But anyway, so this guy, Richard Valdemar, the LA Sheriff's Department gang specialist, he was saying that the only reason Psycho Mike recanted is because he was being threatened, because Chuck Phillips had gotten a hold of his information, that what he had told police, and he released it to the public. Chuck, a lot of people know who Chuck Phillips is. He's a pretty well-known author or journalist. But anyway, he put Psycho Mike's information out to the public. And so when that happened, Psycho Mike was being threatened. He was being beaten. People were chasing him. I think they said he had his teeth knocked out. He got his head slashed with a razor. Someone shot at him once. And then he eventually, I believe it was 2005 or 2006, he had a heart attack and he died. My thing with this, how I feel is that he was exposed as an informant for the last 15 years. I don't think that these attacks were happening. I don't think he was being beaten and shot at and slashed. I don't think that was happening because he had snitched on some police. I think that these people were coming after him because he was a former gang member and he had just been exposed as being a confidential informant for the police for the last 15 years. You know what I mean? If you're in a gang and all of a sudden it becomes public knowledge and your gang finds out, and the people you used to run with on the street, they all find out that for the last 15 years you've been an informant telling the police everything, they're going to be pretty pissed off. Like, I don't understand how that says anything about the Biggie case, because the only person he was really snitching on was crooked police that had been arrested for robbing banks and in the Rampart scandal. So, think of it this way. Why would a gang be mad because he's trying to take down the LAPD? If anything, they would be happy that he's going after the police or the LAPD is getting fucked over. You know what I mean? Like, a gang isn't going to come after you and try to kill you because you ratted on some crooked cops that were, probably fucking those people over. They're most likely, the way I look at it anyway, these people are probably upset with him because they had realized for the last 15 years, this guy they thought, was one of them, had been snitching and ratting them out to the police. And he was probably responsible for some of their friends being arrested and thrown in prison, because some of the people in their gang or whatever had probably been arrested during those 15 years, and some of it was probably because of the information he gave police. So, I don't know if that's the case. I don't know if he got any, body from his own gang arrested, but all I'm getting at is it comes out that you're a confidential informant for the last 15 years, you're a former gang member, of course people are going to be pissed off at you. It's not so much about the Biggie case. In the Biggie case, you're going after the police. They're more pissed because you've been snitching on them for the last however many years.
Wow.